Welcome back to the Game With Us podcast. We are here to talk about episode 8 of The Last of Us HBO TV series titled When We Are in Need. Quick disclaimer, we have all seen episode 9, but we are going to do our best to keep the discussion here tailored to episode 8, but some stuff might sneak its way in. So just be warned. I'll mark timestamps if we do talk about stuff so you can skip those.
First things first, Liara, how could you leave us?
It was I mean, not to say that you aren't awesome people, but I got to see other awesome people that I don't get to see on a weekly basis. So
Man.
Not getting to talk about the episode, not emptying my head of all of the stuff that I want to talk about it. It's a struggle. For 2 weeks now straight. It's been a trial, let me tell you.
Leaving us on read.
yeah.
All right. Well, I guess the first thing to talk about, kind of like the big old psycho in the room. What'd you guys think of David?
I really interested in how Eric's thoughts on David and how that progressed as the episode progressed.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So I'll answer in a roundabout way by asking you guys a question. At what point did you guys realize? Yeah, I'm dodging here. No. At what point did you guys realize that they were cannibals? When did that become apparent? At what?
About 10 years ago.
Well, I know, but
right.
Sorry.
When we played the game, when did we figure it out? I think it happens the same time in the show because Ellie's in the
cage.
Yeah, she's in the cage, and they're actually chopping up people in front of her.
Okay, So, but you guys didn't suspect that at any sooner point, I guess, or something. There weren't allusions to that made you.
They didn't really make it apparent.
Yeah, in the show you get to see the reactions of the other people in the community. The guy comes in, he's like, "It's venison," and you got that look between the two of them, and you're like, "It's not venison." You don't get that in the game because you don't get to really see the community.
Okay.
Yeah.
See.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Okay, so from the open scene, the funeral that they're doing there for the guy. There's this weird pause when he answers, why they can't bury him yet.
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh, the ground's too cold."
Yeah.
And there's I think, I don't remember if it's there or not, but there might be a look with him and James.
Yeah, there is.
But yeah, it's I was like, oh my God, they're fucking eating people. Cause again, this one didn't feel super earned for me cause I was mentioning it before we got rolling, but this episode reminded me a lot of an episode of the Walking Dead Telltale game. Sort of generally the just vibe of the nice people that are secretly stuck in folks.
Not that nice.
Yeah, I was that was a thing that I was like, oh man, that might be happening. So I was like, oh man, it's coming.
It's almost even worse because in the Telltale game, the whole family was aware they're eating people, but in the show, well, at least these folk, most of them had no idea they were eating their own dead, which I think is even more effed up than just killing people and eating them. Eating your own dead, that's
that lady he hands the venison on. He's like, venison? That's ostensibly, anyway, that's the wife, the widow of the person that they probably are chopping up right there.
You're eating, she was eating her husband.
Yeah.
And the scene where they're all eating too is some weird horror stuff. There's just all of the spoons scraping on bowls. Everybody's zooming around.
The soundscape on that seemed like it was turned way up for you to get the bowls scraping on the
horror vibes. So there's a bunch of little things that were leading up to it that I was like, okay, David's definitely a bad guy. But I mean, there's that he's got that cult leader vibe going on from the get-go, I felt like.
Which is interesting because I really enjoyed, I'm sure you really are, just how they build up. Like Erik, kind of similar to the game, where like, Ellie's out looking for supplies, which, by the way, Liara, the bunny got saved.
It did! The bunny got saved!
Did the bunny not make it in the...
No, it doesn't make it.
There's a very famous reaction, because so in the game, there's like a shot of a bunny coming out of the snow, and then it gets like impaled by an arrow. It's supposed to be like the holy shit moment that you're playing as Ellie, but there's a very famous clip of somebody playing the game, and she's
oh,
like,
no, the bunny.
She's looking at the bunny. She's like, that's the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life. But it gets immediately obliterated.
Oh, that I'm gonna have to hunt that down eventually.
They saved the bunny, which I will say, I'm really sad that we never got to see Ellie with like the iconic bow and arrow.
She didn't have a bow. That was my note. I was like, "There's no bow."
Yeah,
okay.
But I hope they save that for like the second seasons at least, because that's like her iconic weapon.
I thought it was cool because they set up that rifle like Joel had just finished teaching her how to shoot that, basically. So it did, to me, that was satisfying, I guess, seeing her like have to take up the go out and deal with the food issue herself, basically. And then, yeah, particularly like where she lays down to get the deer. It's like she's going through all the steps that Joel, like, it seems like, anyway, there's that like bit of her considering more than the bunny where she like runs off and falls. That made me so nervous. Like, pro tip, folks, I like generally running with guns is
You'll shoot your eye out.
Especially when you're Bella Ramsey's height, and they can't be taller than 5'5".
That's
which isn't their fault, but
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting. Like, in the game, we see her with the bow. She shoots the rabbit, and like, you kind of get the sense that she's been hunting for a little bit, because I think she might have had other supplies on the horse when she's hunting. Yeah, so you kind of get the sense like, okay, this is something she's been doing for a little while. And then when she meets James and David and she does the "I'll put one right between your eyes."
Buddy boy too.
Yeah. And like in the game, I got the sense of like, yeah, she'll do it. And whereas in the TV show, this is like the first time she's actually hit something. And it felt like more of a threat. Like, I'm trying to be scary, not I actually am scary.
That was, she was holding the gun, like it wasn't butted up against her shoulder. And I think it's like, she wouldn't have been able to reach the trigger very well, like without laying down to get that and like actually get behind it. Like, that shit would have taken her arm out of socket probably if she actually shot, I think.
She drops her voice to sound more intimidating.
Yeah. That whole scene pretty much was shot from like behind David and James too, which was kind of cool. It was like more or less from Ellie's perspective before we know she's there, sort of. That was a cool scene. I liked that a lot. And it said a lot about David and James, that they were like totally okay with walking off with somebody else's, deer there.
They're hungry.
Like, yeah.
I'm plus. I mean, I'm sure they were like, "Hey, we may not have to eat our dead that much today."
Yeah.
It's that whole conversation with them and Ellie is pretty much just like the game. Like, David kind of sends him off to go get medicine, and this kind of like chimes into an actual complaint I have with this episode and the second one after this, especially this one. In the game, there's a whole segment where they get attacked by infected, and David and Ellie learn to work together to survive.
Yeah. And
it's written to where it's like basically like almost like them kind of endearing themselves to each other, like Ellie possibly finding the one non-maniac person out there, and David seeing that Ellie is capable. And I honestly feel like they kind of the whole revelation thing. I feel like I could have used a similar kind of like scene endearing them to each other, because I feel like at that point they kind of just I don't know. I just feel like it's kind of rushed. Like I get Mason and
Okay.
Druckmann wanted to figure out like obviously like a lot like they didn't want to do too much action because I guess it wouldn't feel like as emphasized or as immersive compared to a game. But I feel like it's just so weird that there's just like barely any infected, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what I could use more of. And that's kind of like
Okay.
I'll go more into detail probably next episode, because we'll probably be talking about more of our whole thoughts of the season. But I don't know, I could use more of that. What did you think, Leora?
I haven't missed the infected too much, but I did see like articles. People were like that was like one of the main complaints of the show. Is like, where's all the infected? And once I was reading that, I was like, yeah, you kind of don't see them much. And I do think, like they said, they wanted to focus on the characters, and they felt like throwing infected in and having a fight just because that's what happens in the game isn't necessarily what you want to do. So
No, for sure, I get that.
Yeah.
But I guess I felt like in this circumstance, I could have used something like that or something
Yeah.
similar to it.
And I get what you're saying, because David and Ellie kind of go through this life or death situation with each other, and they learn to work together and rely on each other, and it does fuel a certain level of trust between them that you really can't get just from them sitting down and having a conversation by a fire. So in this specific, so I get that. I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, so that way I feel like when David drops the bomb, it's like, hey, so I sent men out to a university to get supplies,
Yeah.
and they found this crazy man with a kid, killed a bunch of them, and I made that mic drop, at least to me, after working with David, feel a whole lot more of a holy shit.
Yeah.
I
agree.
That's just me.
I
that
agree.
felt like a wild coincidence to me. Particularly, so you're saying it is the people at the university, like that guy. That's okay.
But in the game, Joel killed a lot more people.
I wasn't 100. I didn't like go back and rewatch to make sure that's like how that would have had to have lined up and everything. But yeah, I was like, okay, so they were in like Colorado Springs or something. So I don't remember where they were then. Actually, that could be totally wrong. Doesn't matter. I thought that was a bit of a like coincidental occurrence, it just felt like a wow. Okay, that's surprising that just like happened to be the connection between them. But
I mean, that is one of the things that the game likes to reinforce. Like, there aren't necessarily good guys and bad guys. If you kill someone, that is a person. That person had a family somewhere. People who cared about them, at least.
Gotcha.
That comes through more in the second game, but it is something that they try to enforce. It is part of the series of like, this isn't just a bad guy that you need to defeat. This is a person.
No, absolutely, and
So
this is like the biggest stretch, basically. But yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say. So as far as the zombies or more infected involved in that interaction, I think if you take them away, it allows Ellie to have handled the situation more self-sufficiently.
That is true.
She's the person who gets herself out of that entirely. So that does change things. I see, like, it is like maybe take some weight away from like the betrayal that, David kind of, I don't know, betrayal of the protector role sort of thing. But
if I remember correctly from the game, when the infected show up, David reveals that he has a pistol in his pocket.
Yes. Yeah, he's carrying a revolver in his pocket.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this whole time, Ellie's like, I got you. You're unarmed. I'm the dangerous one. And then she's like, you've had that? And he's like, well, yeah.
I was going to give you all my guns.
Yeah.
I like the I was gonna mention that it was very cool to me to see her, handle that situation very competently, I guess. Like, okay, drop the guns, takes 10 steps back. She like walks up, keeps the gun on him while she's like clearing the ammo and all the guns on the ground. Yeah. It's like, this is like a thought through like she's watched Joel do this enough times, basically, is the idea that she's now able to walk through those situations competently herself. It was like cool to see that.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I mean, feeling that vibe, like she is like a little stronger in that presentation on the show than it seems like. Maybe, I guess, I don't know.
It's possible.
Or like individually stronger, not like I don't know. But yeah. So so did you guys like David through the game for some portion or period of the time? Like, is there no?
I don't remember ever liking David.
when you're first introduced to him, he's like this soft-spoken guy, and the thing that leads you to a false insecurity is that he's voiced by Nolan North, who's played Nathan Drake in the Uncharted games. So at the time, Fame fans were like, "Oh, that's Nolan North," because he always played the good guy. And
okay.
once
I like that.
That was his big first kind of like heel turn. And once it started, like, once you revealed, like, hey, like I had this men, they were killed by this crazy man, we're traveling with the little girl. All of a sudden, it becomes like so much more like sinister, and I couldn't believe they could make them even more creepy in the show.
Oh yeah, he's worse.
He's worse.
He's worse.
I mean, like, shit.
I was gonna say,
like, the slap caught me really off guard.
Yeah.
That was, but so his conversation with James, right after they come out of that initial in the the funeral. It felt a lot like Kathleen and Perry, where he's like, I felt doubt, I was feeling doubt from you. He's like, are you still, he makes him say, no, I'm still with you. Like, it's like profess his loyalty again.
Yeah, asserting dominance, basically.
I was like, man, if they don't come back with food, James isn't coming back. I feel like when he was saying they were going hunting, but I don't know, maybe that was just me being overly suspicious already. But that was the thing I thought too, is like, man, yeah. James was confident there were no deer out there, but they were going out hunting anyway, kind of, I guess. I don't know.
I was going to say, speaking of James, so cool to have Troy as James, which I think I told you, Erik. Right. Troy Baker, the guy who played James, is the guy who played Joel in the games.
And Ellie in the show kills Joel in the game.
It's good.
Joel from the
game.
game.
Funny.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, he's awesome. Because James was like, not really in the game too much. Not like I said, it was just David, but it was really cool seeing Troy Baker like not in a mocap suit, like actually performing. Not that his mocap isn't performing, but like performing in live action, in costume, and all that stuff. I'm so used to hearing just your voice, man.
Yeah.
Not seeing you.
Mapped to, a graphical model, not just his face and everything there.
Right. But yeah, it was really cool to see him, and especially just seeing, like you're saying, more of James being like his lieutenant, but still kind of like questioning. Like, for example, when they were hunting Ellie, and he's like, well, I mean, I don't know, like maybe it's God's will that we kill her or leave her to die or something like that. And like
David turns and looks at her,
the stink eye. He's like, dude, like, I'm the shepherd of this flock, boy. Know your place.
I'm the only one who gets to invoke God here.
I wrote in my notes in all caps, I am God's will! Exclamation point.
Pretty much.
Exactly.
like, okay. Well, and that was the thing, like, when he slaps that girl, and he says, I know you feel like you don't have a father, but you will always have a father. And the typical Christian thing is, like, God is everyone's father.
Right.
But David's line is, you will show him respect when he's speaking. And it's like, okay, all right.
Look at me. I am your daddy now.
Yeah, like, jeez.
Yeah.
Did any of you get any weird vibes with David and the girl? So the daughter who lost her dad.
Oh.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the show, like, he's talking and people are crying, but when they show us who's crying, the camera goes from David to the girl. And, like, there are other people. And I just thought it was weird that the camera is, like, focusing on him and her. And then every interaction that David has with her, like, her mom is there, but her mom is, like, very hesitant and like scared, and like she doesn't want to escalate the situation. And I just felt like maybe there was something going on there.
I mean, obviously, yeah, David's got some like abusive stuff happening in general.
Well, considering what David wanted to do with Ellie, probably.
Yeah,
I was gonna say it's not out of the realm of possibility, but I think that scene too, where he slaps the girl, it's like in front of everyone. No one does anything.
they all just sit there.
Yeah, that's that power over the room, over the whole group of people. It was just that felt gross to watch. It was like there were a lot of elements of this episode that were just like, ugh, yeah.
Did you notice when they were all eating that David has like 3 times as much on his plate as everybody else?
I did not.
Huh?
There's a plate when everybody's eating and they all have their bowls. David has a plate, and his plate is loaded.
Oh yeah, that's right. His place is very loaded. Like he's the king.
Yeah,
of course.
And everybody else has like 2 or 3 spoonfuls, and he's got this plate.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
right. The whole the distraction that Ellie does on the horse is pretty much exactly from the game as well. Like she's just like shooting from the horseback and all that stuff.
Oh, that's so good. I was that was really cool to see as well. It was another spot where we see like Ellie doing the kind of thing that Joel would have done in the first, handful of episodes, basically like, okay, well, I'm gonna run off and get them to follow me, and you can be safe here. Just stay hidden and stay, hide and all that stuff.
Please fucking kill them, whoever comes in here, okay? Please.
I imagine she was like, it's not good if anyone does come down there at that point. But
that made me laugh so hard when she, like, he's barely conscious, can't keep his eyes open. She puts the knife in his hands, like, anyone comes down here and you kill them, okay, Joel, you kill them. And I was just like,
you're gonna come back at some point, right? Like you assume.
Right.
I was watching a reaction video and someone's like, wouldn't it be hilarious if Ellie came back, Joel's still on the mattress, and there's like half a dozen guys surrounding it, just dead.
Right.
Oh, God. He's like, slowly grunting as he's trying to sit up, and it's just, oh, thank God.
Right.
I was saying, though, you see when the guy they're hunting for the house after they have Ellie, and the guy's coming in, and you see Joel's like of questionable consciousness right as the dude's about to come down the stairs. I was like, oh yeah, this is you're done, son. It's going bad. They're trying to make us wonder if Joel's going to be ready in time, and then he comes down and the mattress is empty. Like, GG, friend. Oh, that was a very brutal scene as well. That like knife in and the grimace the guy had on his face while he dies. A lot of brutal violence throughout this episode.
Oh yeah.
Yes, it's probably, actually, I would say most graphic, but it's seeing Joel barely alive, just it was like really, and seeing like him watching the guy's life fade away from his eyes. It was like really effed up, but not as effed up as what he does to the 2 guys afterwards.
That's the scene you guys are talking about.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Yeah, that's the scene we were spelling around. We were like, no, we can't tell him.
Yeah. This reminds me of one later. Well, they have to do it. If they don't, it'll ruin Joel's character. It's like, yes, I get it.
Erik, what did you think of Joel torturing those dudes?
It's clear he's a bad guy. Like he's not the hero of this story. He's not Rick Grimes. Readily apparent.
Pretty effed up stuff.
Yeah.
That was definitely like the moment playing the game where it was like, oh, okay. Like
Mhm.
This is what you're capable of. I see now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like putting it on screen.
Yeah.
Like we didn't, I mean, there's the one instance at the very beginning where he just murders that dude with his bare hands.
Mhm.
But like throughout the rest of it, there aren't these like, very visceral, incredibly violent reactions. There's the implications with a bunch of the other stuff, but that Joel will do stuff like this. But seeing him, like I'll pop your fucking kneecap off. Like, oh my god, like that dude's never gonna walk again.
Well, he's dead now.
Well, you don't have to worry about it.
And that was
I think what's worse is what he does to the next guy, where he's even asked him, he's like, all right, I believe you.
I believe
He just
him.
kills him
it
anyway.
didn't. I mean, that's so like I don't know. Torture is like never about. That's for the person doing it, not the recipient. I don't know. Yeah, you can't verify that information anymore. Like than any information given just by anybody else. Like you still got to go there and check and see if it's right.
I didn't know you're such a torture expert.
No, we had U.S. politics, man. But no, that's it isn't a reliable way to get.
It's not.
No, for sure. For sure.
Which is why Joel says it's all right. I believe him, and just kills the other guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, well, we'll see. I'll get there. Hopefully, I can track down this resort thing. I should be able to find like a brochure somewhere or something.
What's funny is that I don't know about you, Liara, but I feel like it's almost worse because in the game, the guy on the couch, he like snaps his neck.
Oh.
But it's almost like I was okay. He's gonna snap his neck. And he stabs him. I was like, oh god, okay.
Yeah.
I'd rather get my neck snapped.
I didn't think of that, but yeah, you're right. That is more brutal.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just especially once you'll see, I don't want to talk about next episode too much, but like Joel is a very violent and broken man.
That's been apparent.
No, you're right. It has been apparent, but it wasn't until this episode and the next one we really see just like how capable of like this guy can be to do such horrific acts. Which, speaking of violence, I think one of the best things that the show added that wasn't in the game was some additional stuff with David talking to Ellie, and even though it's really creepy, kind of like psychoanalyzing her and telling her that she has a violent heart.
Yeah.
Which is totally true.
Yeah.
I just want to know what you guys think about that.
Well, she's totally capable of violence, but...
Absolutely. She's not like your normal kid.
But David being like, I see me in you, I think is a stretch.
Yeah, a little bit. Little bit.
You were going to say something, Erik.
I'm sure I was too, and then I pulled my earbud out of my ear like 4 times, and
okay.
Just to figure out.
I know. Go back to whatever everybody else. I'm sure I'll remember in like 3 seconds.
Okay.
That's okay. It's okay.
In the middle of someone's sentence.
It's funny is I remember because Ellie in the game ate the venison, quote unquote, for a bit. But I love how Bella's Ellie just kicks it immediately, just tells him to fuck off.
Yeah. A friend had to point this out to me. Ellie, so this is before she's getting up and he's like telling her about being alone or something, and she says, fuck you. And there's this pause, and David says, why don't we start with your name?
Yep.
And it's...
Yeah.
He doesn't take that as an insult, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, the implication that he's kind of into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when she tells him to eat shit, then he gets upset.
Yeah.
I did like that hazy consciousness, not sure where she is or what's going on. Ellie's response was, fuck you. Didn't really matter what the question was.
No.
That's sort of like she's like, let me out of this fucking cage. What the hell? What's going on? Which, oh man.
And the, man, I didn't think they could make the hand touch thing even creepier than it was in the game. But like,
I was gonna ask about that scene.
man, ugh, man.
That was a question I had for Erik, was how long did it take you to figure out what David wanted from Ellie?
So I think it was somewhere in that conversation.
Okay,
but it
yeah.
was he started talking about how she was special.
Mhm.
She wasn't, she didn't need, he saw her as an equal, and it was like, oh, that's like
classic grooming technique.
Yeah, like that's creepy adult manipulating a child kind of talk. Like, oh God. So it wasn't, I didn't get to that angle on it until pretty, like right as the show is intending for you to realize it. I think.
That's how it works in the game too. I was just curious.
That was, that I was. So it's a weird thing but I have this note in here that I chuckled at when I was reading. I was like, what the fuck kind of math teacher is David when he's talking about his violent heart? I can see it in you. I've got one myself. And then like right after that, it's like, oh, fucking you, is like the next note I have after it. Because it was that sort of like, what the hell is this guy's, was he a serial killer? Oh, gross. Okay.
Yeah.
Even worse. I'd rather him have been a serial killer.
Yeah. I guess,
and I didn't notice that until watching it the second time when he's like, I was a math teacher. I taught kids about your age. And I was like, oh, no. No.
Yeah.
Oh, gross.
Which, by the way, it's a testament to, I don't know, I forget the actor for David's name, but he killed it.
Oh,
my skin was crawling every single time he opened his mouth.
He is unlikable.
Right. Absolutely. And which, by the way, I really loved. They kept this, Ellie's the name of the girl that broke your fucking finger. So
that's
good.
from the game.
Yes, it is from the game. Also,
Oh.
because I listen to everything with subtitles.
Mm-hmm.
In the game, the subtitles ruin the line because the subtitles come up before she says it. And I just wanted to say that I was so happy that the TV show did the subtitles correctly.
Yeah.
I was like, yes!
It's funny. Going to ask you guys about that scene and how it played out comparatively from the show. It sounds like it was more or less the same.
Yeah.
I was just curious how much of that, came out of the...
The only thing that wasn't in the game was the whole discussion with like him, his history, and the whole violent heart thing. That was from the show, which, like I said, I thought that was a really kind of like, especially leading into what they're going to adapt afterwards. It's really interesting how much they're setting up that Ellie too is somebody who was brought up in this world of violence, and that she, like Joel, can also lash out and do some pretty brutal things to people, whether they deserve it or not.
And I think there's like, it raises some very interesting questions about where the line is for what you do to protect the people you love. Like in David, we kind of see, what is definitely presented as sort of the wrong answer to how to keep your people alive.
Absolutely.
Like within the text. And I think generally most people would say, yeah, don't eat people. That's not good. But, David does bring some sort of reasoned argument saying like, well, is it better to let them starve? And like,
right.
There's something to that general line of reasoning, maybe not in this individual case, in the same way as like in an academic discussion, but like,
if you have nothing else to eat and people are already dead, that is meat there.
And like, is it okay to take that deer? Like, is it, and comparing that in some ways to Joel as someone who has a past of doing probably, more, maybe he didn't eat people, but I mean, just because you don't eat them, you can still cause a lot of harm to people to take their stuff. And I think it raises an interesting question about what is acceptable, what isn't, and kind of how anyone can be pushed to a position where they will do whatever it takes, kind of thing. More literally than others, I guess. I don't know.
I was telling my friend about there's a plane crash that happened, I believe it's 1972 in the Andes. And the way that the plane, that people were searching for them but couldn't find them. It's really inhospitable up there. There's no vegetation. There's no animal life. The plane was white, so it blended in with the snow. The pilot thought they were in a different area than where they were. So where he reported where they were at wasn't correct. So they weren't looking in the right place anyway. So basically no help was coming. There, I don't remember how many people it was that survived. I want to say 30 something, but I don't know that that's accurate. But basically, people were up there for 2 months, and the only way that they survived, eventually, they went through all of everything in everybody's suitcases, candy bars, snacks, the pretzels and peanuts and stuff, nothing that's going to last you very long. And then they tried eating, when they ran out of food, they tried eating, the seat cushions and leather and stuff because they had nothing else. And then eventually it got to the point where they're we have people buried in the snow.
Yep.
And it got to the point where they finally realized rescue wasn't coming. And they sent the 2 strongest people that they had out to, walk down the mountain and go to the valley and try to find help, and people gave them consent to take the bodies of their family members as fuel so that they could survive the trip to save the rest of them.
Oof.
And it's just but they were up there. It was 2 months, and people they were rescued. They made it. They got down to the valley. They got help. They led them back to the people who were there. I think by the end, there was 16 people who survived. And people were happy and celebrating. And then the questions started coming out about, you were up there for 2 months. You physically could not.
How did you, yeah.
Yeah, you physically couldn't
Where
live.
did you get the calories?
And then they found, buried in the snow, these bones that had been picked clean. And people turned on them for doing that.
Yeah.
And it's just like you said, it's this huge, I feel if you're gonna starve and you have no other option, and there was one person who said, I'm not gonna eat anybody, and he did die. He starved to death.
Right. And then probably got eaten.
So it's what other option, what other option do you have at that point,
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
Ugh. But in the video game, I felt like David's group was actively hunting people.
Oh, okay.
So and I don't know, Aiden, you've played it more recently, but in the show, it seemed more like we're eating our dead.
No, absolutely. Because the scene where Joel finds the bodies.
Yeah.
In the game, 1, there's a lot more.
Okay.
And 2, I remember vividly, there is a note basically making a receipt list of everyone they killed. And one of them was I forget what it was, male, late 30s, big boned, stuff like that. And they were keeping track of their meat, basically. So yeah, they were definitely out hunting people to eat. So it was pretty gross.
They are active cannibals. They've switched to hunting people for food, whereas in the show it felt more like we're eating our dead. We're eating the people who are already dead.
Yeah, that did seem.
Which I think eventually it would probably escalate to that.
Yeah.
I agree with that as well. The philosophy David has does not seem to, preclude hunting folk.
Yeah. David doesn't seem to care. Some of the people in the group seemed like they weren't really.
But
happy about it.
So the justice thing, right? Like there was a general like groundswell of, like the girl called for killing not only Joel but Ellie, right? Like they all wanted blood there. So it seems like there's some appetite for, like, if you can give a decent justification, you'd be able to turn that mob on whoever, pretty much, if you're David, it seems like.
That's true.
And then, now you've got food, I guess. They may not know it, but
I thought that was because, like, I don't know how much they understand. Like, I guess they said he was traveling with a little girl. And it seems weird to me that people would be like, yeah, kill them both. And not just, like, kill Joel. But we've also seen Joel's side, so I don't know how deep in it we are, or if it's just, like, this is just the violent world we live in now. I don't know.
I think it's more so that, I mean, I guess to a point when you live already in a violent world, I mean, especially also, like, the emotional kind of, like, heightened awareness, emotional kind of, like, chaos that somebody could feel, after something like that. I think in this world, they were just so angry that anyone who's even associated with that person, they just wanted to kill. But David, obviously, it wasn't like, no, we can't kill this child because it's wrong. And it's not that. It's more of, we can't kill this kid because I want to make her my wife.
Right.
You idiot.
I mean,
so it's so effed up.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the size of it. But it is wild to me that, there are, like, they were, James and the random folks there, where they were about to execute her on the ground after they bring her horse down. Like, it's weird to me that they are so, like, ready to, go out and take retributive justice or whatever like that. That seems to be, it must be a trend that they've, like, you hurt one of the flock, you've hurt a family member, and now we can, it's okay to do whatever to you kind of vibe, I guess. I'm not sure.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Here's a question for you guys. Do you guys think that whole thing would have lasted a while? I remember this same question I asked with Kathleen. Or do you think James would totally be like a coup against David? What do you guys think? Do you think that situation could have lasted?
I think the whole thing would have, like, imploded. I don't see them turning on David.
Really?
No. I feel like they've reached, like, cult status.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, everything hinges on him.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's like, I don't know how cults fall apart. Either the leader dies and takes everyone with him, or the leader points out people who are the problem, and then they all turn on each other, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess my point is that, I mean, James and the crew literally just, like, talk about how they need to kill this girl, and them question, like, why is David leaving this one alive? And they were literally, like, about to disobey him before James had to, like, shoot a gun in the air and say, all right, boys, back up. It really seems like it was this, I mean, especially...
But they do stop.
Yeah, they do listen to him. And they don't seem like they're going to turn on him for telling them off.
Yeah. For sure. I guess my whole point is that I observed that they definitely wanted to.
I was going to say, I think if Ellie and Joel aren't involved in the picture, that James doesn't come back from that hunting trip. I think I think David sensed weakness and was going to go ahead and head that off at the pass. And
like, you go hunting with me, and then
there's an accident, and now you've got more meat. But
he come back, but and their plates
without a deer.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That was I was like, that was my concern when they were talking about going hunting, when James was like, we don't, people see what they want to see. There's no deer around here. We'd be fine if there were. Like, we're starving. We would know if there were deer around. I don't know. So that was, I agree, I think, with what Liara was saying. I think David had a strong enough hold that there's potential at least for them to have continued going forward. And they were cool eating folks, so...
How many of them do you think knew? Because David said only a few of them knew.
I think the guy that with the beard that walks in and says it's venison, he definitely knows it's not venison.
Definitely. Yeah, because he cut the meat.
Yeah, and the mom...
I thought that was James the first time I watched the episode.
The mom, I think, suspects, for sure.
Yeah.
But isn't sure. We know James knows, and I don't know beyond that. Maybe the whole group that's out there with him, hunting down Ellie?
That seems reasonable.
Maybe, yeah. Do you guys think the kid knows?
No.
Do you think maybe that's why she was so insistent on burying her dad? Because maybe she figured out they're eating...
Yeah, I think it's a religious thing. They wanted to bury him. You do last. That was my read on that, but it's one way to look. I wouldn't have considered that side of it had you not said it, though. That is interesting.
Yeah, because I mean, I was thinking of like maybe she just doesn't. She suspected or was told by her or told by somebody, "Hey, we're eating people." And then when her father died, she's like, "I don't really want to eat my dad." And then David was like, "Shut up, you're eating your dad. I'm eating your dad now." You know, I mean, listen, this one's so fucked up, dude. I don't put it past them. I don't put it past them.
What was the plan when spring came? Because they're like, "We'll bury your dead in the spring," and then all you have are bones. How do you? Does the whole village know at that
Closed
point?
casket.
They just told everybody.
I imagine they'd be like, "Oh no, there was a fire in the barn that contained all the bodies. Uh-oh. I guess we can't bury them now."
So if it's my cult of cannibals that I'm trying to keep,
Okay.
I would, you'd have a pine box, but I'd tell you that it's been a year.
Oh.
You don't want to see them. Closed casket. And you can, put some weights in there or something, I guess. I don't know. Make it feel like there's a body shifting about, but mostly just avoid that whole problem.
Yeah, that's...
Still have a funeral, right? Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Note to self. Noted.
Don't
cool.
eat Eric's home cooking. No.
Midwest people are weird.
Known as an anti-cannibal.
There is like venison has a very particular flavor, so I'm told, and human is supposed to be very similar to pork. So I would think even people who like weren't suspicious of what David and James were telling them, I would think that they would like eat it and be like, "This something about this doesn't taste the same."
I would agree with you on that.
You guys, this tastes like pork. Have there been any? Oh God, what's pork? What pork comes from? Pigs?
Yeah, they're telling it. They're telling us it's deer, but it doesn't taste like deer. Like what? What is?
And
this?
that's like tomorrow we're gonna eat deer, and they're gonna tell us it's deer, and it's gonna be different,
and it's gonna taste like deer this time, and you're gonna be like, "What did I eat yesterday?"
And you're right too. Like if you're preparing meat regularly, I'm sure you'd be able to at least be able to recognize the difference. Like that. Okay, this isn't cow meat. This is, or like I've worked with that. I'm familiar with that. I'm familiar with pork.
This is a thigh from a person.
Yeah, it's like these chunks are shaped differently than I'm used to seeing. Other,
Or they cook up differently, or
the texture, whatever, the grain size. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not.
What they really needed was a guy like Hannibal making their food. Then they really would know.
I think without access to like gourmet, cooking standards, I'm not sure his like sommelier knowledge is going to be useful. I'm not sure.
You know what?
Who's got fava beans right now?
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, the sequence with David and Ellie, like in the restaurant, that was pretty much exactly like in the game. It was basically just like hit and run tactics from Ellie, because like David would chase you around, and let me tell you, he knows hide and seek. Let me tell you, he's a hide and seek fucking master. Let me tell you, man. We are playing that mode without listen mode was hell.
No, oh my god, I didn't even think of that.
The hide and seek mess.
Yeah, I've seen some shit.
Oh god, that part of the game.
I would literally have to peek around corner and just like make a mental note of where he is.
I would die. I don't know how you would get past that ungrounded mode. That part of the game is the most anxiety inducing because you are this small girl with this knife and you are trying to walk around this building that's on fire. There's glass in places, and if you step on them, David will hear you, and
he'll sprint to you.
Yeah, he will sprint. The guy is fast, and he's got a gun. And then you can't, like, even with listening mode, half the time you don't know where the frick he is. Like, you just get lucky and you see him scuttle past like some creepy spider, and you're like, the frick. And it's awful. It's absolutely horrible. I hate that part.
Right. Oh no, it was really bad. Like the first time, like when you raise the torch, I mean, he moves to you so fast he sees you immediately, and like I said, he has a gun, so he orients between shooting you and trying to stab you. So it is like really, really difficult. That I could totally see why they just like speed ran through it in the show.
Oh yeah. You can't really replicate that.
God, it was so rough. Yeah.
It was late. It was more than 3 seconds. I remembered.
Okay, I was exaggerating.
Like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. Another thing is that in the game, when Joel's coming to the resort, he's like dealing with David's men and capping them on the way there, while in the show he's kind of like barely making his way. And one thing that I really appreciate that's actually a little different that I kind of liked more is, so when Ellie stabs him, and there's the very famous scene of her just stabbing him over and over again out of like pure anger. If you remember, Liara, in the game, Joel stops her at the very end.
Yeah.
But in the show, she just keeps going.
Yeah.
She just keeps going, and he meets her outside. I really kind of like that, and most because I think like, oh man, that's gonna fuck her up so much.
Yeah, I do think the way they did it in the show is better.
Which, especially since considering what David said right before, which we all know. We don't got to talk about it. We all know. Well, we could, but I don't know. It's not age. It's pretty fucked up. If you remember what he said, but anyway.
Yeah. There's no fear in love. I think we can say that.
That's like provably false, in the text of the show. Right?
That's true.
See Joel's entire character arc.
Joel's entire character is fear in love.
Oh,
and like that's empirically false within the text. So it was super cathartic, honestly. Like after all the it was another gross scene where you just are made to feel very uncomfortable, and then kind of getting getting vengeance or whatever there. I don't know. Yeah, watching that was
the I got you. The baby girl from Joel always gets me.
Yeah.
Oh man, it got me in the game, and then the show. I was like, it's so good. It's like daddy, the real dad's here.
Yes.
Right. That fatherhood comparison too. That was like David's sort of perversions, not a great word choice of like fatherhood versus the role Joel plays as sort of a quasi father there. I thought that was very interesting to see that comparison, particularly leading into the finale that we're about to see here. But sort of asking that question of like, okay, it's like what's the right way to be a father figure, and how it can go horribly wrong, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The stuff that love makes you do,
Yeah.
Well.
Erik, you had you sounded like you remembered your question that you had that you forgot.
Oh, so we were talking about not being a ton of infected eons ago in the series. And Aiden, you were saying that was one of the things that you just like a complaint that you saw that you kind of agreed with. I think maybe it was Leon. I don't remember.
I don't kind of like. I kind of do, and I kind of don't. Like I see what the meat of the story is the characters, and that's what they did.
No, yeah, for sure.
I was just going to follow along basically with that point of I think particularly in The Last of Us, the way that they've like what they're working with, the way that they're dealing with these kind of complex themes, is like, what we do for love, where is the line for what's morally acceptable, that kind of stuff. I think the zombies do take a backseat in my mind there. That's it's a drama with zombies in it.
Yeah.
It's not a zombie.
No, I get that.
In my mind, I guess. But that was, I think, was the crux of what I was going to get at anyway, regardless, just try and reiterate.
You were very much going like a classic, like We Are the Walking Dead and all that stuff. But, I don't know. I could have used one or two more, but
yeah.
I'll get into more of that.
I was going to say, I could see that desire. There was like a few episodes where there was not a lot of action.
And it's most because I'm so pissed off after dying so much in the game that they barely saw any.
TV Joel has it too easy. It's not fair.
He does. He really does. He has no idea. God, I've seen Joel get eaten, crunched, his head fucking ripped apart in so many different ways to be desensitized.
I loved that everyone out in the cold had appropriately red faces. Like
it was, I think, wherever they were.
Well,
I don't remember.
I just want to say props to the makeup department because I feel like
does that happen? I've never been. Just for reference, the coldest ever gets down here is like 40 degrees.
If you wild.
Yes, your cheeks and your nose get red.
Wild. That's. I think they were. It was somewhere Canada. I want to say Saskatchewan for some reason, but I don't know that that's right.
Calgary.
But I felt like Calgary. That's probably right then. I believe you. No, I think it was Bella Ramsey in one of the post episode thing was talking about like how cold it was and what Joel was talking about the giant wind machines they had. Yeah, it was like out in ass cold already, and they put on the industrial wind. It's like, oh man, that would suck a bit. I wonder. He was saying he could have. Or you were talking about him saying he could have just pretended with some of the infected. I imagine that's another situation where he would have been fine, acting like it was frigid as cold, walking through a blizzard or whatever. Oh man, but that was so good.
Those fans must be really loud too.
The set, it was so pretty.
It's like, please block out the gigantic fan that's like a few feet next to you. Just pretend it's not there.
I'm sure that's all. Nobody's talking through those like long walking scenes, so you just cut that and like do all the audio in post. I imagine.
Oh yeah. Plus, I mean,
work.
I'm sure something he's used to. I mean, the guy works in The Mandalorian. I've seen the behind the scenes stuff they use with those sets. It's like incredible, the stuff they do.
I believe it.
The horse stunt when James shoots it.
Yeah.
That was incredible. I like stopped the episode and rewound it to watch it again. I was like, that was insane.
I have a note that said, man, that looked awesome. Oh, that was good.
It looked so good.
And seeing it in the post scene that it was like a dummy horse or whatever.
Yeah.
It like that's like they've been doing that for forever. I don't know, like nigh on 100 years here in films. So it's wild that's the classic practical effect method of doing that stunt. I don't know. It was a trip to watch. It's like
I could take a whole video on how they did that stunt.
So cool.
I'm like, show me how you did it. Exactly. I want to see.
Awesome.
And then let me do it.
Nah, I'm good. It looked like Ellie bonged her noggin pretty solid there.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
if this was real life and if there was no snow on the ground, she would have gotten a concussion.
It looked like she should not. So going unconscious after suffering head trauma is a bad sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a doctor, not medical advice, but
No. See, it's okay because she got a health pack and then bandaged her arm. It's okay now.
Yeah.
it's all good. Just like wrap up a bandage around your wrist. Problem solved.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that they're like stuff that happens in movies that in real life, they're like, in movies, people fade to black after getting hit in the head way too often. They're like, if that's happening to you in real life, you need to go
to the ER.
Bad
Yeah.
news.
Please go to the ER.
See a doctor. You could have like an intracranial bleed or something. Oh my God.
Something really bad.
Talk to someone. But yeah, I'm like, it was interesting as well. There's like a low tier medical. They just kind of like threw her in the cage after that. And they were just like, well, we'll see if she wakes up. Yes. I don't know. Just spoke to their, like, I don't know, lack of like amorality or whatever, I guess you might call it.
Can you imagine if she died and they're like, listen, David, gravity did it.
Oh, man.
So what if she does die there? They take her back and eat her. What happens? Do they all get infected?
No.
No.
Are they all cured? Or no?
That would be awesome, but no.
No.
We're all magically cured.
Because if that was the case, then Sam would be cured.
Yeah, you're right. It didn't work that simply there. It shouldn't anywhere.
Yeah. By the way, thank you for reminding me of Sam.
Thank you. You know.
So I don't think it's really a spoiler, but that is something that's covered in the second game. Like, Ellie legit doesn't know. She's like, can I get people infected that way? Like, is that something I should be worried about in my life? Hold on, I have a cat on my desk.
The real concerns that face all of us. Like cats on desk.
And then she does confirm that no, she can't. So I don't think that's a big spoiler to like throw out there.
Then that probably answers the next question I was going to ask, which is like, what if David doesn't get hacked to pieces? Like, can Ellie infect people by biting them?
That, part of me is like, that would be kind of cool. And then the other part of me is like, you could never have any physical relationship with anybody.
That would suck horribly for Ellie, but I sort of wish the timeline where she infects people. She's just like what are they?
It's like Rogue from X-Men.
Yeah.
X-Men movies. Yeah. She just lobotomizes anybody she touches.
Oh. Well, she was stealing. See, because they don't have powers. Mortals couldn't survive the contact.
God.
Okay. I'll wheel it back. This isn't about X-Men.
It could be. There is a Marvel character called Cordyceps Jones.
No way.
Fuck yeah.
You made that up.
Are you for real right now?
You made that up.
He is a parasitic fungal 4 who's 30,000 years old. You want to see him?
I'm Googling him right now.
Yes, I wish to.
Cordyceps, if I could spell cordyceps,
That's a mushroom man.
What the frick?
He is a parasitic fungal 4 and also an intergalactic casino proprietor and notorious crime boss. And he kind of talks like this.
Ooh, I just found a really gross thing. Oh no, that's someone else. Okay, good, because why?
Turn safe search back on.
Sorry, if I can find a way to turn any situation on Marvel, I'd find a way. Also, his first issue was in 2017, so he's post Last of Us.
All right, fair enough. That makes sense then. I was gonna say that'd be a weird coincidence, but into the zeitgeist, and then it follows. But one thing I was gonna say, I'm not a doctor, but I am fairly confident that when there's an infected wound, that you don't just like fill up half a syringe and jam the needle into the wound.
So
I don't think that's proper procedure.
I know. So again, I'm not a doctor, as you said. I know, like, we do intravenous stuff because that's like a quick way to get there. Obviously, Ellie doesn't know how to do that. I assume injecting him anywhere would eventually it would travel through the bloodstream and deliver it to the site. So I guess what she's doing isn't technically incorrect. Like, it still gets to where it needs to go. But she also doesn't know the proper dosage to give him.
Right.
And
Or she just makes him OD.
Well, and it was like a big old needle, and that's like lung adjacent. And she just kind of mushed in there. If you're not careful, you're just putting liquid into his lungs. Like, you don't. That's bad. You don't want that. You poke a hole in there and pneumonia. Boom.
I did Google because my friend and I were discussing the same thing. Like, can you overdose on penicillin? And the only thing I can find is that more penicillin than you should have can make you really sick.
Huh.
Gotcha.
The only other thing is, like, vaguely, I feel like antibiotics are supposed to kind of go through your bloodstream because there's toxins everywhere that need to be cleared out, and you want like a general load to sort of neutralize the bad stuff or something. And it seems like if it's supposed to be IV, then just, that's like going intramuscular. It's just going to pool there at the wound and then not get anywhere else necessarily. I don't know, though. Again, not actually medically trained in any way
I can
whatsoever,
neither confirm nor deny your
Yeah.
theory.
It seemed off to me, but I imagine it's far better than nothing for sure. So
there's a YouTube like ask a doctor thing, so maybe I will stalk that channel. Be like, please explain. Could this work?
What UF? Yes, please. Someone tell me.
The final comment that I had, the one slight issue with this episode is Ellie picks up that burning stick from whatever, and I'm like, yeah, you could like stab him with that because it'll burn and it'll hurt, and then she just throws it in a corner and lights the place on fire, and I just felt like that was not Ellie at her most intelligent. Like, that just seemed...
I think, if I remember correctly, in the game, how it works, they have a scuffle and they accidentally like knock into a lantern.
That would make
my
sense.
thought there was, if you started the fire, that's something else that would theoretically split his attention. And like a rational person would be far more concerned about the fact that the building's on fire than the little girl running around. But I mean, you're not wrong. She did just huck it at him and he ducked it, basically.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure it was intentional to start the fire.
I didn't. I thought she was aiming to hit him, but it would make a lot more sense if she was trying to start a fire and get him to leave her alone.
Like, it's a distraction vibe, or, like sort of, okay, the damn building's on fire. Clearly, that's the most pressing threat. But,
he did not care at all.
Right. It was like Kathleen, he's too obsessed and focused, and it's
not my seventh priority right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Whatever. The steakhouse is burning. Screw it.
Whatever. Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah. That was just wild to me. That was, watching him continue to hunt for Ellie in the middle of a burning building, talking about how I'll still teach you. This, that, and the other. That was just like this, wild, off the hinge. I don't know.
The cool thing in the game, the set piece, is that it happens, and the longer the fight goes, the building gets progressively more smoky and on fire and all that. It's especially the remake. It's really cool, and I love seeing how they managed to recreate that for the show. It was really cool. The whole set piece. It's almost like the buildup of the fire is kind of like symbolic of like the tension, and then once Ellie finally like once the fire reaches its like highest point of everything is ablaze, that's when Ellie snaps. And it's like a neat little metaphor, I think. That's how metaphors work. Or symbolism. One of those. I'm not a professional writer.
It's like a visual metaphor or something.
Yeah,
maybe.
that's what it is.
I think
I'm
that
so
works.
Smart.
Symbolism. I think that's the same thing. I don't know. Just call it the text a lot. People will think you're smart.
The subtext.
Yeah, within the text of The Last of Us.
Within the context of the scene, it's very conductive. That's not the word I'm looking for. Very cool that it happens.
Absolutely.
But that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Oh, so there was an interesting comparison, I thought, between sort of David's like, you don't know how good I am line, that, and like the kind of, if you'd only let me, I could be good kind of thing. And Frank with his like, let me love you how I want to, and like love me how I want you to lines. I'm not sure what the link is there, but they evoke a similar sentiment in very different contexts and are treated differently by the, one's very clearly condemned and the other one is like the conclusion of this very beautiful story. So I guess, what'd you guys think about that?
Probably the same as you, honestly. It's, like I said, the whole theme of the show and the game, like they say, is like what love can make you do, and David's version of love is twisted, violent, and really disturbing.
But it, I think is still, it seems like what he thinks is love is still at the base of that within the text of the show. See, he sounds super smart. I also thought it was like an interesting comparison with like Tess's line way back when, like when they leave her, is like, I never asked you to feel how I felt, or something to that effect. There's like another similar sentiment there. There's this through line of like how far you can impose on others because of your love, and like where does that stop? Sort of what's the obligation you owe to someone because of their love for you, kinda? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Something more there. I'm not.
The part where she's like, I didn't ask you to feel the way I felt, and Joel goes to say something and she tells him to shut up because she doesn't have time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what was he gonna say? I want to know. What?
Yeah, what the fuck, Tess?
I assumed that was like back in the, like her response to the like way that they had to survive, sort of like she would have been the more moral person of the two, probably felt worse about it. Mm-hmm. That was just my read on that whole scene anyway, but like, and so it feels like it lines in well with all this stuff, sort of like what you have to do to survive and how that takes its toll on people individually, but also like the relationships and stuff. I don't know. Man, they do so good. This is just such well-written characters. So many great situational dramas that they set up and pay off. Ugh, very jealous of the ability show.
I feel that.
Show is good, in conclusion.
Show good.
Show good. Especially we go more detail about the next episode. That's when I'll definitely hit you with the show is, and
the way that this sets up in opposition, sort of. I think it's the first clearest look at Joel as not the good guy. The most blatant, obvious presentation of that fact anyway. There's other stuff where it's happening off screen or referenced or whatever, but this is like explicit and preparing us for what's to come.
Yes, absolutely.
Erik, I saw you left a comment about like the show increased in viewership like 74% or something ridiculous.
Yeah, so I had seen leading into the finale. I haven't checked since then, again, which I should have done. But I believe it's still doing some meteoric rises. But going into or after episode 8, I believe it was, like a 74% increase was the number I was seeing everywhere since the start. And that most people were saying that it was on pace to double by the finale from its like starting audience, which, that's pretty phenomenal. And the viewership that they're measuring is just, or the stuff that I saw was mostly tracking just streaming viewership, not also, which doesn't include like on screen like normal TV HBO viewers. Those get like counted in separate categories too. So it seems like it may even be slightly underrepresented in a lot of the stats that we're seeing, how popular the show is, which is wild.
And the sales for the first game kind of grew like exponentially with the remake
I
and all that
believe
stuff.
that.
And I imagine along the line, part 2 will probably get the same kind of increase.
I would expect as much.
It'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it will depend sort of how everything carries over here. And yeah, the people who just who've never interacted with the story before, coming to it the first time, turning around and going to get the game, that isn't going to be 100% conversion rate. I'm not sure what it'll be, but I imagine there are going to be some people who watch this who do not like the way it ends and walk away from the, because they're just like not, it doesn't matter. I'll get into that. We'll get into that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
did going into the next episode, Erik, since you didn't know how the story ended,
mhm.
I was curious if you remember if you had any expectations or predictions.
Oh yeah, I can tell you exactly what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, I want to know.
I thought that I sort of alluded to a lot of it, half jokingly when I was talking about having lost hope and all that jazz. But genuinely, I figured that one way or another, Joel was going to end up having to make some sort of heroic sacrifice.
Yeah.
To get Ellie back to the Firefly doctors, so the cure is made and happily ever after kind of thing, or as close to it as things can be, as we can get in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And Joel's sacrifice would then be that like bittersweet side of the thing at the end.
Gotcha.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the next episode, plug your ears for the next couple of seconds. Assuming they're gone now. I'm really glad
that's not what happens.
Right.
God, they did so much better. And it's similar to like, I was talking about how I thought, oh yeah, people from Jackson will come and like rescue Ellie here. And like, we got this awesome episode 8 of Ellie being kind of, I was kind of expecting like a murderous Home Alone, and that didn't happen. But, it was still pretty badass, and her being self-sufficient as well was like a cool change. And so they've surprised me with stuff like main story beat stuff regularly. It's been very cool to see. I feel like I can guess where a lot of basic normal TV shows are going pretty early on. So keeping me guessing is good.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they did that with this episode coming up for sure.
Yay.